think of what could happen when I'm worshiping in the next 30 minutes and what also could happen in the next 30 minutes and realize the potential of what happens as we gather somewhat depends on us. I think God is ready every single week to meet us right where we are. He's got love, He's got strength, encouragement, guidance. A lot of it depends on our readiness and receptivity. Anybody agree with me on that? Jesus did very few miracles in His hometown because of their what? Yeah, their unbelief, their unreadiness. They weren't ready to receive it. So as we talk today about a few important things, what I would like to just ask of you is that we automatically switch into a mindset, if you're not already here, a mindset that says, I am here to learn. I am here to grow. And I am here to encourage and support the other people who took the time out of their day to come into this room and grow in God. Because when we come in with a sense of trepidation and intimidation or judgment, like, man, I don't know what that person's thinking, or I'm surely farther along than they are, or I don't like this or that. When we come in with that mindset, we just sort of miss most of the good stuff that God is doing. But when we come in and immediately go, no, we're a team, we're a people God has brought together, and He's doing important things in each one of our lives, we want to support that. Powerful things can happen really quickly. So if you're willing to be a part of that mindset, hey, I'm for you. I want to grow today. I want to learn and grow deeper in God, and I want you to do that as well. Can you just raise your hand for a minute? Okay, hold it up for just a second. Glance around the room. You can put your hand down now. We're in an environment that is safe to grow and safe to move. We've been talking the last couple weeks about this idea that we don't just have a general responsibility list in life, but God has actually made each one of us unique and put a fire inside of us for something He wants us to do in the world. This changes the way that we approach most daily tasks and daily life, to really believe I have a mission from God. He's called me by name. He's called you by name and sent you to do something important in His world. For some of you, you've been living like this your whole life. And maybe this series is just sharpening it or reminding you or clarifying it. For others, this idea has been cloudy and it's getting clearer. Wait a minute, if God has given me a mission, why am I not articulating that well? Or what does that look like on Monday or Tuesday? And that question is really bringing some interesting results. I'd like to just give a minute to reflect back on last week. Last week I asked you to write down as much words as you can to describe what is my God-given mission? What is your God-given mission? Maybe it's not crystal clear, but maybe you've got some words that are sort of coming to focus. Or maybe you're looking back on it and you've got actually a life experience that says, well, I was really passionate when I did these kinds of things. That's giving me clues as to the fire God lit in my heart. I've never thought of it as a mission, but I can see the trail in history of where God used me most effectively. This might be actually the mission that I've been living and not even realize it. So let's take a minute, just maybe 1 to 2 minutes, and I'd love to give you an opportunity to share with somebody around you, what is my God-given mission? Go ahead and do that for just a minute. Out loud, you can talk, you can move. Just about 15 more seconds. Wonderful. One of the great things that comes from sharing this, not only do you get to say it out loud and somebody goes, yeah, I could see that, but you also get to hear somebody else's and realize, well, that's very different than mine. And once we start hearing other people's and realizing how unique each one of us is, it validates and encourages us to be ourselves. Well, I'm not like this person or this person or this person. What I bring to the table is actually unique and valuable, important, as if God actually designed it that way so that we're a community and we all bring different gifts. I want to read from Exodus chapter 3, verses 7 through 10. Moses' call has been the guidance and light for our passionate pursuit of our own why during this series. So let's read Exodus 3, 7 through 10. A little bit of it will be on the screen. This is during the burning bush conversation that the Lord has with Moses. Then the Lord told him, I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. I have heard their cries of distress because of their harsh slave drivers. Yes, I am aware of their suffering, so I've come down to rescue them from the power of the Egyptians and lead them out of Egypt into their own fertile and spacious land. It is a land flowing with milk and honey, the land where the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites now live. Look, the cry of the people of Israel has reached me. I have seen how harshly the Egyptians have abused them. Verse 10, now go, I am sending you to Pharaoh. You must lead my people Israel out of Egypt. God is recounting what has already happened and what's about to happen, and then he makes the final pronouncement of go. Here's what he's saying. These people that have been praying and crying out to me for years and years, generations, and thinking perhaps I've forgotten them, that I've abandoned them. No. I have seen everything. I have seen all the abuse. Not a single event took place in their life that I haven't seen. I saw it all. I have heard every cry, every prayer, every desperation, every whisper. None of it fell on deaf ears, none of it hit the wall and then fell to the dirt. Sometimes that's just encouraging to be reminded that every single abuse, difficulty, trial, punishment, failure, everything that we've gone through that has been painful, hurtful, and suffering, God has seen it. Not a moment happened where he was turned the other way. And every prayer we've ever prayed, every whisper sent to heaven has been heard by God. And then the third part. So Moses, here's my plan. I'm sending you. Could you imagine? Okay, you're going to do all these wonderful things. I'm glad to hear that. How is this going to happen? You're sending who? Like, this is your plan? You're sending me? Yeah, that's my plan. I'm sending you. Now we're going to flip roles for a minute. Not only has God seen your suffering, he's seen everybody else's. And in many ways, throughout your life, God does the exact same thing. He's like, you know that person you've been praying for, or that relative that's been struggling, or that neighbor who's had health issues, or that coworker who's in a really dark place, or that friend at school who's been up and down in their emotional wellness. I've heard all that. I care about them. Don't think I'm not involved. Oh, and by the way, I'm sending you. To think that God could answer someone's prayer by sending you puts a little bit of a different spin on the day, doesn't it? Before we leave the room, I'm going to give you 3 invitations. They're not for everybody. Maybe they're for nobody in this service. I don't know. Maybe they're just for somebody online who stumbled onto the service. But one invitation is an invitation of surrender to following Jesus. That's the starting gun of this whole journey. Without him, we're just trying to figure out life in a vacuum. 2 is an invitation to an actual call to vocational ministry, like ministry full-time. And 3 is an invitation to a call for a ministry model that God might be speaking to your heart on. And so at the end, I'm going to give you an opportunity to raise your hand and say, I think this is for me. God is stirring in my heart today that I'm going to say yes to that. There are 2 questions as we move forward with a passion and a mission that God has given us, or why, that we want to get really clear on up front. Because if we don't get clear on these questions up front, it will cause a lot of distress for us. And the first question is this: whose people are we helping? On the other side of your passion and your mission, somebody is being helped. Somebody in distress. Maybe it's not physical slavery, but maybe it's a spiritual bondage that they need to be set free from because their life is really in chains, metaphorically. Or maybe it's cries of distress that they really need somebody to be tangible help with. But the question that we have to settle up front is, whose people are these people? If you're in the medical field, you might go, well, I know the people that I'm helping. They're my patients. Whose people are they? If you're a teacher, well, I know the people that I give the most to. They're my students. Whose people are those students? Well, my family is my primary. Whose people are they? I want to share a little banter with you from several passages between God and Moses that highlights this. In Exodus 3:7, God is speaking. Then he's told Moses, I have certainly seen the oppression of my people in Egypt. Whose people? My people. But then there's this interesting dialogue several chapters later in Exodus 32. Then the Lord told Moses, quick, go down the mountain. This is after God had given the 10 Commandments and the people were now worshiping a calf. Quick, go down the mountain. Your people, he said to Moses, your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. Interesting turn. And then, in response, Moses says, oh Lord, why are you so angry with your own people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt with such great power and such a strong hand? There is this dialogue and banter between God and Moses, and I don't mean frivolous. It's not to be taken lightly. But there's this dialogue between God and Moses of, hey, your people are doing this. God, these are your people. There are times when the people are acting a fool and being really difficult to lead, and Moses just goes in the tabernacle and goes, God, what do you want me to do with your people? Literally what he does. They're not mine. They're yours. You can have them. I know you've called me to them. What do you want me to do with your people? Jesus said, my sheep know my voice. In John 17, he said, all those, Father, that you have given me. In John 21, Jesus said to Peter, Peter, if you love me, then feed what? My sheep. The reason this is so important to square away right at the beginning is we start taking ownership of these people. We love them and we start taking ownership as if they're my people. You ever heard anybody talk about this? Hey, that's my staff, or that's my client, that's my patient. And there's just a sense of ownership that may be well-intended, but it gets really difficult down the line really quickly if we don't realize these are God's people. When I served in Africa, this became painfully clear to me. I was told by all of the people who trained me in preparing for this trip, be very, very slow to give money. In fact, don't give money, don't give money, don't give money, don't give money, don't. You're going to want to give money. People are going to ask for money. A lot of Africans are going to come with great need. Don't give money, don't give money, don't give money. Some of you have heard me share this story before. And so it was so painful for me to not give money. I lived in an area where there was a particular tribe called the Karamojong, and some of these kids, they were rural dwellers, and some of these kids would come into the town every day, and we're talking 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids covered in dirt, very raggedy clothes, hands out, and anytime a white person was in town, they had a chance, man. They went after it and just basically in their language followed you around, not at a distance. I mean, touching, pushing, asking for money. Can you give $1? 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 And I tell you, for days and weeks, my heart was just breaking inside. I'm like, they told me not to give money. I don't know why. I want to give. These people are in need. So I tried to get away from them sometimes because I felt so bad not giving money. Other times I just was calculating in my head, can I just give something? And I saw people who didn't have this training come in and start giving, and they just got swarmed and overwhelmed, and it blew up in their face. And week after week, my heart was torn for these kids. My heart was torn for these kids. And it became almost this game. They knew me, they saw me coming, and I saw them coming. And it was sort of like a standoff. We both knew our roles by this point. They tried anyway, knowing that I couldn't speak the same language, couldn't communicate. And then one day I just broke the script. I changed my role. Can you give $1? Can you give $1? I just reached out and grabbed the kid's hand. And we walked together for a couple blocks. And we were both shocked. And at the end, they went away and something shifted in that dynamic. We tend to make one of two pendulum mistakes when it comes to people. And these pendulums can swing in whichever order first. We see somebody in need and we go, I got to save them. I got to fix this. God's called me to it. I've got to save these people. They're in slavery. He's called me. I got to rescue them. But no, God actually said, I'm going to rescue them. But when we start swinging the pendulum on, I got to save them, guess what happens? You see this in people who go into pastoral ministry the first couple years of their ministry. Oh my gosh, people want to talk to me. I can pray. God is using me. Things are happening. And what happens? And they just sort of get the I'm going to save them complex. I have been called to rescue. And you can just sort of sit back and go, we're counting down the burnout clock. All those expectations are going to burn out. Give it 18 months. Because when we try to save other people, we realize we're not fit for the job. Which the pendulum reaches its peak, and then it comes back to this peak and goes, you know what? I need a break. I don't want to talk to these. I don't want to do anything for people. I don't want to hear your mess. I don't want to deal with your crap. I don't want to have anything to do with these complaining, bitter horde of Hebrews that you've sent me to, God. I'm so mad I could hit something. Sound familiar, Moses? Neither of these is our zone, folks. You have a people God has called you, but whose people are they? Whose people are they? Yeah, they're God's people. The more we can square that away, the more we can actually effectively serve. The second question is, whose provision? Whose people are they? They're His. And it's hard to say this, but even the ones you love the most in your own family, spouse, kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews, siblings, they're His too. And when we forget that they're His, we do strange things. And when God says, hey, they're my people, I've got a plan, I'm going to move them, I'm going to do something different than what you want with your people. If we're primed and ready for His people, okay, God, they're your people. If we think they're ours, we get really bitter. The second question is, whose provision? This is another Moses moment squared away right at the beginning. Whose provision? God, the need is immense. This is a large group of Hebrews who are now going to be traveling many miles in a land that does not have any natural provision. And if Moses is expecting to provide all the needs of this people, he's going to find out really quickly there's an equation problem. This doesn't solve. But God established early on in the journey, hey, I will provide for my people. You want bread? Okay, go to sleep, wake up, you'll find it. And Moses didn't do a thing about that. You want meat? Watch. You want water? Hey, Moses, go over there and water will appear. We mistake sometimes ourselves for the providers, the provisionaries of other people's needs. And it just brings us back to this same pendulum swing when we don't realize God actually has provision. A few months ago, someone in our church shared with me a need. It was the need of a vehicle repair. And it was a sizable repair. It wasn't just a frivolous need. It was a significant need. And I heard it, and I prayed for the person, and I wrestled all week about this need. Because I have the opportunity to hear a lot of needs, and I love that and pray for people, but I also feel like I should meet all the needs. and I didn't. I couldn't. And so I prayed about this, and honestly, I carried it for a while. I just felt like, oh gosh, this is an important need. But I didn't have the provision. A couple weeks later, I came back, and this person shared with me, hey, somebody in the church gave me a car. And it was such a huge blessing to the person, but it was such a huge blessing to me to just remember, hey, who's got the provision, Jared? Who's got the provision? It was all taken care of. Why did you carry that for days? Why did you carry that around for so long? God had it figured out. And there are times when the need comes up and he's actually given me the extra provision that I can meet the need. That's wonderful. And there are times when God has given you the extra resource, abundance, wisdom, skill, prayer, opportunity, time, energy, where you look at this and go, I think God's calling me to do this. He's already given me the provision. This is me. I get to step into this moment. But there are other times where recognizing that God is the provider means stopping. Just means we get to stop and say, I'm going to watch God work here. I have no idea how it's going to happen, but I know He's got the provision. My first year of college classes, I took a course called Introduction to Ministry, and in this Introduction to Ministry, it was taught by Keith Drury, and he had us write a definition of the word ministry. What's a definition of the word ministry? I still remember that definition, and that was a long time ago. And then he had us draw a picture of our definition, and it really sunk in. Here is the definition. Ministry I remembered the definition until just now. And then I forgot. It goes something like this. Meeting divine resources, meeting human needs through loving human channels. Divine resources, meeting human needs through loving human channels. And please know, when I'm talking about ministry, I'm not just talking about pastoral ministry or church ministry. Right now I'm talking about the ministry of all believers. Every follower of Jesus has ministry. So it's divine resources meeting human needs through loving human channels. And so the picture looked something like this. God providing resources okay, as you can see, speaking and drawing are not equal gifts for me. divine resources meeting human needs through loving human channels. This has stuck with me for a variety of reasons, and I want to challenge you with a model that exists in the world that you've probably bought into more than you realize. If you have ever had any business interactions or even in relationship interactions, what happens is we tend to fall in a money model. A money model is not bad. Please hear me, nor am I saying money is bad, but it's the simplicity of the model that's too simple. We have the company, and we have the customer. With me so far? We could translate this to a school system. We could translate this to almost any other relationship system. What happens here is that the company provides a good or service to the customer. Great. And the customer provides money to the company. Still with me? It's pretty simple economics 101. Great. This transaction, this company-customer transaction, is not bad. It's important. The world runs on this. But you can see the highest part of the diagram is what? What's at the top? It's all about money. If we can tweak this to make more money, the better we will get. A ministry model brings something higher than just money into the equation. When we recognize God's presence and provision in every interaction we have at a company, at home, in a relationship, in a transaction at the store, when we recognize we are working in a company right now that has God at the head of it, all the provision, even from the company, is coming from Him. All the transactions are laced in this fact that God is with us. It changes the way that we see things. It changes the way that we treat people. It changes the overarching goal because money is no longer the highest thing. God is the highest thing, and love is what's actually transacted. I want to close in just a minute with a song, and as we get there, I want to invite you toward 3 different calls. One is just a simple surrender. If anybody's here and you're like, yeah, I've not been following Jesus, but I want to put my faith in Him. I believe that God is a part of my life, and I've been shutting it out here up. If that's you, I'd like to give you an opportunity to pray today and make a step of surrender. If that's you and you want to do it, just raise your hand so I can see who we're praying for. Okay. If there's anybody in the room today who's actually sensing a call to vocational ministry, or maybe just a recommitment of it, or a rekindling of it, just saying, yeah, God, I hear you. I'm still in, or I'm in. I'm exploring. I think you're calling me. Is there anybody who wants to respond that way? And is there anybody who would say, they really are God's people and they're God's provisions, and I haven't been acting like it. And I need to change, not just go into full-time ministry. I just need to change my model. I need to treat everybody in this model, at work, at home, otherwise. Is there anybody who's sensing that call from God this morning? You can raise your hand. Okay. I'd love to pray for you, and then we'll close in song. Lord Jesus, I pray that whatever the responses, whatever the calls were today, that you would step into those calls throughout the week. Make our passion, our why more clear to serve your people with your provision. In Jesus' name we pray.